I didn't have audio on, so we're going to do that again. So dark rituals. Hey, I think that's a great topic for a research paper. Welcome to episode 210 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. Joining you live from Gadgetan, New York, it's Ridiculous Hat. Joining us from Karazhan, California, it's Botticus.
Hello.
From the Maelstrom, Louisiana, it's Appa.
Hello.
From the Twisting Nether, it's you, listener. And we are supported in large part by you. If you'd like to find out how you can support us and receive rewards in return, head to patreon.com/CoinConcede. Huge thanks to our newest patron, Old Tuna. Old Tuna, we appreciate you, but you can be New Tuna. You can do that. We talked about you on the bonus episode, Old Tuna, and you're even older now. And also, listener, you can support us by leaving an iTunes review, and it really helps other people find the show. All right. Who wants to talk about what they've been playing? Botticus, I see rank 1 4 stars. Go.
Yeah, so tried to climb a little bit last night, got up to rank 1 4 stars. I bet you guys can't guess what I've been playing. Here's a hint. So is everybody else. So
does it rhyme with best bombing? Is it Quest Shaman?
Yes.
Yes,
it is.
Do you know how to rhyme?
I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't get it right away. It took me a second. So anyway, yeah, got up to rank 1 4 stars, and then lost a game where my opponent very clearly misplayed on the last turn, and I missed 2 1/6s, and tilt spiraled a little bit down to rank 1 1 star, but then right before the cast got back up to rank 1 4 stars. So deck is quite good, and despite it being a little oppressive, I think I'm still enjoying playing it. I don't know, it's not one of those decks where when it's the best deck it gets old really quickly for me, which has happened with a lot of decks before. So I'm still just probably going to jam it till I hit legend, and then try to probably play one of these N'Zoth decks like that N'Zoth Rogue Hat's been talking about. Looks like a lot of fun.
So fun until you get Mass Dispelled and lose immediately.
Does Zephrys usually have something to do with that Mass Dispel?
Sometimes, but the other times your Res Priest opponent just gets back 2 Hakars from their own third N'Zoth, and then they have a main deck Mass Dispel and smack you and you draw 2 bloods. Hypothetically.
Yeah, that's weird that the priest decks are starting to run Hakar, which was really strange, but as Shaman you just play Shudderwalk and then your hand's full, and then you draw the bloods and they don't go back into your deck. So it's it worked out for me. But yeah, WickedGood says in the chat that the random generation makes it feel less samey, but I actually preferred it a lot more before it had the Desert Hair Evolves shenanigans. It felt a lot more like you had to adjust your game plan, whereas this is kind of just I flood the board. Sometimes I auto win on turn 4 with a Bunny Evolve, and then other times I actually have to play more of the game. But it's still fine, still enjoying it. I do miss the felt like I worked a little harder for my wins before, and this time sometimes you just get random wins, which traditionally has been nice, but I'm not as in love with it.
Appa, how about you? It's your rank 87 legend? I guess things are okay?
Yeah, I didn't know what rank I was, but I just checked the leaderboard and it said I'm 87 because I haven't logged on to Americas very much. I've been playing a bit on EU, trying to get to legend on there to put me in like decent position for the end of the month to try and climb. But yeah, it's really funny because I feel like this happened the last time that Shaman was really oppressive, back when we had Spirit Claws Mirror Shaman, where I just didn't actually enjoy the mirrors very much, and that's kind of the case right now. I'm not playing as much as I was pre-Evolve getting introduced, because I'm just not really enjoying the texture of the current Shaman mirrors, where as before, the Quest Shaman mirrors and the Quest versus Token Shaman mirrors, like pseudo mirrors, were really interesting because there was a lot of interaction and a lot of posturing, and you had to like play around mind control tech and your opponent's Mogu turns and your opponent's Thunderhead swing turns. So it felt like you were playing and like balancing on a knife's edge constantly until you were able to like have a like really solid turn or like plan a swing turn a couple turns in advance and blow your opponent out. But now the Shaman mirrors just kind of feel like two ships passing in the night, where you're both just trying to nut draw the crap out of each other. And usually whoever has the early Desert Hera Mogus wins. And don't really like that too much. But yeah, even with some of the different random effects, I liked that before because it made the games feel a lot different. But now it's just really busted games that are decided on like turn 4 or 5 usually, with some randomness sprinkled in, and I'm not a super big fan of that. So I'm playing less. I'm still playing a decent amount, but I haven't laddered on Americas at all, and I'm only playing like probably like 2, 3, 4 games at a time, like in one little sitting on EU. But probably playing like upwards of like 15 games a day on EU. So I'd expect to probably hit Legend on there by like next week or so. But yeah, I think it's funny that I just love playing Shaman, but the way that the Shaman decks play right now, the mirrors are not very fun.
Yeah, it's not a great analogy in my head right now. The Quest Shaman pre-evolve felt a lot more like Raza Priest, and this current version feels more like Xerix Cloning Gallery Priest, where like the Xerix deck felt like it just kind of got some free wins, and the Raza deck felt like you really had to piece together a good game plan and play and know how all your cards worked and use them effectively. It's not like a great analogy, but I don't know. When I'm trying to contrast it in my mind, that's kind of how I thought about it initially.
It feels like before Evolve was introduced as standard, the Shaman mirrors were pretty intricate outside of like really strong Mogu mutate draws where your opponent couldn't answer it. Because those games just happen sometimes, but all the games in between were usually pretty good. And now it just feels like you could probably just reveal your opening hand to each other and determine who wins the game. And I'm not a super big fan of that. But yeah, Shaman's really good right now.
It's like, it's really good. I don't think it's as good as it is currently being represented on the ladder, but I think it's close. And the ladder representation right now is between Legend and Rank 4, or including Legend to Rank 4, it is 30% of the ladder. And there have been a couple times this week. There was one day where I captured the Vicious Syndicate live. Shaman was 47% of Rank 1 decks. 47!
Jesus.
Like,
that's so many percent.
Statistically, if you were in a match and you weren't playing Shaman, the other person was. It's ridiculous. So, we talked about this in the bonus a little bit, which we published right before this episode. I think we all think that something is going to get touched, and by something we mean Mogu Flesh Shaper specifically, because that card is not okay. Is not an okay card. And Corridor Creeper at least took a couple turns to cost 0. This one, you just play your cards and it's free. So,
and Corridor Creeper didn't get to kill something before you did
and
other
then
stuff
become Ragnaros or Batterhead or Gilnean Royal Guard or Hyreek the Bat.
Ring. Or the best is when it turns into Kali the Rhino, and then you draw the second one out of your deck right away, and it's an 8/9.
I don't like this. I don't like this. So I feel weird about this meta because I don't dislike it, but I've played 25 games in the past week, and that's low for me. I really loved Saviors of Uldum as a meta. Really loved it. I'm still digging Rogue. N'Zoth Rogue is fun, but the games are too long. A lot of the games are a little bit too long right now, especially when I keep running into N'Zoth Priests and N'Zoth Rogues. I've been trying different flavors of Secret Paladin, which is how you know something's a little off. But Mech Secret Paladin's super fun. And I've really been...
It doesn't have Divine Favor. You're okay, Hat. You can play Paladin.
I would...
We don't speak its name here.
I would vote myself off the island if that was happening. But I've been mostly practicing for my League format series matches. I'm in the top 4 of the Coin Concede Listener series. And also I'm playing in THL, of course. And I've been mostly focused on those to get my Hearthstone fix. And I've been playing a ton of Tombs of Terror, which I'm really actually digging on Heroic, except for Wing 3. Wing 3 can go die. Except it's the Plague of Death, so it's already dead.
What's the affix for that? Well, it's not an affix, but what I'm calling it an affix.
The Eternal Tomb on the board.
Okay.
But
yeah, that one's annoying.
The thing that sucks, it isn't the Eternal Tomb. It's the final boss is it rhymes with bull spit. Is what it is. It's very similar sounding. I know we don't do rhyming on the show, so don't worry too much about it. But it's the hero power on that one is 0 mana, activated minions, friendly death rattle. And the first 3 times I came up against it, the first minion was Convincing Infiltrator on turn 1. And what do? Every turn they just snipe it, they keep psycho-popping it back, and then they mass resurrection, and I fatigue out. So I beat it eventually. But I'm working on Tikan right now, and I've really enjoyed Heroic Tombs of Terror and the entire thing.
Have you got any sweet combinations of treasures that you haven't seen other people talk about?
So I think the most broken deck I had was the Elise Treasure that it's 0 mana, starts in your hand. It gives you a full filled mana crystal and upgrades the number of mana crystals based on how many friendly minions die. And I also had the treasure that recruited whenever you play a spell, Crook and Flail. So whenever you play a spell, you get a you recruit a minion from your deck. And then I also had Tracking Device, which is the 1 mana spell that draws a 2, 3, 4, 5. So turn 1, I would go Tracking Device, recruit a minion, and then the Elise Treasure, and recruit another minion and gain a mana crystal, and then usually play another 1 mana spell. And I was just picking every single bucket that was either low mana spells or giant minions. So I would get like turn 1 Ragnaros, turn 1 Yasharaj. I bulldozed through that run. It was disgusting. So yeah, that was good. And I think that wraps up Life and Ladder, but we've got a little bit of news to talk about, so why don't we jump into that?
Greetings.
Hello.
My greetings. Well met.
That was not the wrong bumper, and you didn't hear anything.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
All right. So first up in the news section, we're kind of finishing up the Blitzchung discussion. We talked about this on the bonus episode, which just came out yesterday. But we kind of wrapped up that whole thing. I guess there was a kind of an interesting note that I forgot to add to the show notes, but the team America's University, AU, actually received a 6-month ban. I believe it was today. Might have been yesterday.
2 days ago. It was very late 2 days ago, yeah. I heard about it.
Okay.
One of the players is in THL, and he was signed up for a series, and then he messaged me. He's like, I can't play anymore because I got banned by Blizzard. So, yeah.
So that was kind of interesting. I guess I kind of see why they did it, because they wanted to be even keeled with like having everything be even with that. But I don't know, it was kind of awkward timing, I think, or it felt a bit like awkward timing. I don't know.
Just remember, everyone. Roger competed in Worlds, and Shaxi is still a Grandmaster. And they got banned 6 months for holding up a sign. Good memes. That makes me so angry. Like, I understand why they did it, but, like, come on.
So, like, they very clearly brought on a bunch of new employees at Blizzard and changed the philosophy and how they do things, but it's still a short time period to the public, and the optics are still kind of poor. I guess at this point they're not going to go back and retroactively deny Roger his prize money. They've theoretically paid him by now, and he won. He won one of the playoffs, right? Yeah, he won the.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I remember a very awkward photo where nobody was making eye contact with him. After he won the trophy. Yeah, like. I get that new people come in and want to do things a little differently, but also just the optics right now. There's nothing Blizzard can do to look good, but it's. I get making sure the platform isn't being used for political purposes, and I get that the ban has that specific purpose, I guess.
It was just kind of, I don't know, somewhat humorous to me. They held up the sign, expected something to happen, then they were getting their next match, and they're like, no, we deserve the same treatment. You should have banned us. We're not competing anymore in this. And then Blizzard, a day or two later, is like, okay, you are banned for 6 months. Like, the timing on everything just felt, I don't know. But anyway, if you want to hear our final thoughts on the Blitzchung situation, make sure you check out the bonus episode. Do we have anything else we want to say about this before we move on?
Not really. I think I said pretty much everything I wanted to on the bonus episode.
Yeah, we wanted to get everything out in a more timely manner. That episode came out a couple days ago before you heard this, so hopefully you've heard that. If not, go listen to that, and we're not going to drag this topic out too much longer.
All right, so it looks like there's been a dual class arena adjustment for the meta. Chalky posted on Reddit, said, we've adjusted class card offering rates for the duration of dual class arena to be about what they were previously. Around half of the cards offered per draft should be class cards now. Cool.
I haven't done my free arena ticket. Well, actually, I have 2 of them because I kept a 2-win run from the last meta, which you're always supposed to do when they rotate arena metas, because then you get a free ticket for that too. I haven't done a dual class run, but there were a bunch of threads on Reddit that were pretty upset that without Classic and Basic, and with class cards being kind of pretty heavily weighted towards more expensive stuff and spells, you just took neutrals every time. You just always wanted neutral minions. And so decks were like 23 neutral minions and a few class cards. So they really changed how things go, because the format before, I think, was pretty questionable in terms of quality. It's the first time they did the experiment without Classic and Basic, but we may take for granted how many of those early game vanilla minions we really, really need. And hopefully the push of the classic card, or of the class cards being more popular and being more visible will make the meta a little better.
Also, if it's dual class, you would expect there to be a lot of class cards because you have 2 classes to choose from. So I think this is probably a good change. I've never been much of an arena person, but I played my 1 game to finish off that legendary quest. So I know I actually have some friends that have been doing a bit of dual class arena. I know they really like it when it comes out. So for those of you interested, make sure you check that out.
And listen to Arena Sensei by Schwal and Steven Sensei. They do an arena podcast that's short form, much more concise than us. You can listen to it between episodes of Concede, and they put out a good product.
Did you really have to add that part? Much more concise than us. I think you could insert anything in there, and it's still more concise.
Let me make sure I'm clear. Their episodes are between 5 and 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Bite size.
They're concise compared to a 1600 Dust podcast.
Yeah, they're more concise than our intro section.
I think that's actually what I might do whenever I'm on Hearthstone. Whenever I kind of get bored of ladder, because right now I just kind of put my phone down and do something else. But I've always really enjoyed arena. I started a run, and I think I'm 2-0 in it on the America server, and I haven't done one on EU. But dual class is always fun. I should play that more.
All right, so the next news item is that there will be drops enabled for Masters Tour Bucharest. So that'll be pretty interesting. Is this going to be the first kind of broadcast tournament of just normal conquest? Where without the shield?
Since Worlds, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Does Tespa use normal conquest? Or do they use a different format?
I think Tespa was using Conquest too, actually, you're right. Yeah, Tespa's using Conquest.
Okay.
So,
well, this is
but Tespa was best of
non-team-
3. Yeah, this is best of 5.
Okay. So, yeah, it'll be pretty interesting to see what happens when everybody's banning Shaman. Which is likely what I would expect to see at Masters Tour Bucharest, but maybe there's a target Shaman lineup with some interesting choices.
We'll talk
Well, I
about
guess we'll
lineups
have
a
to
little
find
bit in the
out.
tournament section.
Yeah, I worked on some prep for Zabe and Mick, who's actually on Crescent now, who's now my teammate. That dude's really good at Hearthstone. But I did some like lineup prep for them, and target Shaman lineups are it's hard. It's hard to make those work because like you get some of those like good percentage, and sometimes they just go Desert Hare Coin Evolve, and then your percentages don't matter. You've lost. So it's a hard one, but it'll be interesting to see what people came to the conclusion.
Well, I'll definitely want to pick your brain when we get to the tournament section and talk about lineups because I have some questions for you. So keep that in mind. Let's see. Tavern Brawl Part 2 is currently live. I was actually a little bit confused about this going on, but now you, in addition to being able to still choose the members of the Team of Evil, you can also choose League of Explorers. I thought they were going to just do League of Evil and then League of Explorers as 2 separate weeks, but you can still choose everything this week. And if you complete the run in under an hour, you get a golden Temple Berserker, and if you complete it in under 40 minutes, you get a golden Hunter Dust, aka Generous Mummy.
100 dust is very generous.
Yes. Oh man.
And if you got 16 of those, you'd have a podcast. 1,600
Yes.
dust.
Yes, you would.
Yeah. It's just math.
I've been evolving things into generous mummies lately. It's generally very, very bad for my game plan. That's not where you want to be. You don't want to be on the generous mummy game plan when you're evolving stuff. Let's see. And yeah, so we have one last little news. Unless anybody wants to talk more about the Tavern Brawl, I was able to complete it with Sir Finley because giving the rush minion whose power goes up for each minion on the battlefield, Divine Shield and Wind Fury, is very good at completing runs very quickly. So if you're struggling with that, that's what I would recommend. I don't know if you guys have done a sub 40-minute run on that yet.
I started a run last night, and I think I got through 3 bosses. I picked Finley because I was reading the hero powers. I'm like, this one seems very good. Divine Shield and Wind Fury seems really strong, and then I fell asleep. So I gotta restart that one to get all the bonuses from that.
Yeah, I haven't done the new one yet. I did beat the last one in 25 minutes, I think, because Togwaggle was super busted. But I don't know. I haven't done this one yet. But Finley, he has that hero power in Tombs of Terror, and it's pretty insane.
I should probably clarify that I didn't fall asleep because I was bored or something. I was laying in bed and it was like 11 at night, and I started the run, and then I fell asleep, and then I woke up, and my phone was really hot because it was just on the screen. And I was like, oh, whoops.
So what I'm hearing is that you're so bored with Hearthstone, it's a dead game, which kind of brings us to our next news item.
All right,
Those
so
are your
Hat put this
words.
on here. I'm pretty interested in his thoughts because League of Legends came out with their own card game called Legends of Runeterra. And I'll have Hat talk about it before I give my very limited impressions on it.
So Legend of Runeterra, it's Riot Games who makes League of Legends. They announced they were making like 5 or 6 different games based on the League of Legends IP. And all those characters and all that, including a card game with an Android version available at launch, designed for mobile and desktop, that also had a free-to-play focused economy. It had no card packs, and you kind of have 4 different ways to progress your collection that you earn through various ways of playing the game, and over time you theoretically will be able to unlock all the cards in the game for free, but also you can buy wild cards and a set amount per day if you want to craft specific cards. It's in closed beta right now, but they're giving out codes by Twitch drops, so if you register your Riot account and link it to Twitch and go watch the streams, you can theoretically get it. They gave it to a bunch of streamers, including but not limited to Savitz, Dog, Disguised Toast, Skara, like so many streamers that have played card games at any point. Jab was streaming Legend of Runeterra for 15 hours. Like, the game is... So I got in. I have played exactly 1 game. So far, kind of fun. It's about as qualified as I am to talk about it right now. It's definitely a little different than Hearthstone in terms of how the combat works, in terms of how the turn interactivity works. It's got a good bit of polish so far for being in basically alpha. And it is very clearly being marketed in a way to draw in players that are into Riot and are not already into card games. It happens to have appeal for people that currently play card games, but that's not who they're going after. And I'm curious. I played it. So far, I don't see it beating Hearthstone in terms of polish, but I do see it being a real legitimate competitor, and I do find it extremely embarrassing that Magic the Gathering Arena finally was a digital product that Wizards of the Coast could have theoretically pushed in a commercial way, and they're being beaten by another company to mobile that announced their game a year later. Come on, Watsy. Get with it. So what do you all think? Bodicus, you seem to have some thoughts ready to roll.
Okay, so I don't have a lot of thoughts, but the only description I was given were to a bunch of people in my WoW guild who picked it up and were talking about it in Discord, and they seemed pleased that they kind of announced that they do not want to have a lot of random elements. They want to limit the number of random elements in the game, and that always worries me because I feel like when it comes to that, there's one game that's really worked for, and that's chess. And most other games that lack random elements where the better player always wins, or you almost always wins, they're going to have to prove to me that this is a game worth playing instead of actually, just thinking that it's probably going to be a good game. Because games that traditionally don't have a lot of random elements and the better player wins do not do well, from my understanding. They don't have a good track record.
Before Appa speaks, I want to make sure I'm super duper clear about one thing and one thing only. If you compare this game to Artifact, you are playing into an internet meme. This game has nothing to do with Artifact except it is based off of a MOBA. That's it. I played Artifact in the alpha. This game is not like Artifact. It is a game that is understandable when you watch it. You do not have to pay to play it. It is not like Artifact. Please do not compare it to Artifact. It is much closer to if the Magic the Gathering combat stuff was a game. That is all. Appa.
That sounds awesome. Because I like turning sideways with creatures and magic and outmaneuvering my opponent. But I am also taking a different approach to this, where I have Twitch tabs open and I'm not watching the game at all because I don't want to know what's going on. I want to get my beta key fingers crossed, knock on wood, because it hasn't happened yet. And then I want to get into the game and not know what I'm doing and just explore it for myself. I really enjoy playing League. I've played League for, I think, 9 years at this point. Still really bad at it, but I enjoy playing it a lot, and I really like all the IPs and stuff. And I'm also a fiend for card games, if we haven't discussed that already. So this is right in my wheelhouse. So I'm really hoping to get a beta key pretty soon so I could start playing. And I don't know, I'm really excited for it. It seems really cool. The only things that I've seen from like streams are just like different cards with the champions from the game on them. Like they have, I had Savage open. I had to look at the stream to open it, and he was playing a deck with like Fiora and Garen and stuff. I'm like, that's awesome, because I played those characters and I want to play their cards. So put me in, coach. So yeah, I feel like I hit both of the target markets for this game. So looking forward to getting the beta key, but it seems pretty cool. I mean, the premise of it seems cool, at least.
Yeah, I will say my favorite part of it so far is that you can grab all of your played minions at one time and plop them all in the attacker's field, and it feels very satisfying. The worst part of this so far is that Riot Games is owned completely by Tencent, which is a Chinese media conglomerate that has been at the center of some of the controversy, especially around the NBA. And I am concerned by the number of people I have seen who have walked away from Blizzard for ethical reasons that have then gone on to support this Riot Games card game. So please make sure if you are interested in getting into this game, which I think is worth doing, like it looks fun, it'll be a really reasonable competitor to Hearthstone, like a legitimate competitor pretty quickly from my initial experience. If you have ethical concerns about where your money is going, make sure you do your research on this one first, because there's not a lot of easy answers here. Also, it's not on the Mac, which is kind of a bummer. But anyways, that's enough talk about a game that isn't Hearthstone. Why don't we talk about Hearthstone in the tournament section?
It's the grand tournament!
And we have our BlizzCon contenders. Casey, Bloodyface, and Tom 60229. Bloodyface and Tom 60229 making a return to the world stage. Tom maybe will be the first 2-time winner ever. And they are joined from the first season by Fino, PNC, and Surrender, as well as VK Lion from the China region. So I wasn't really feeling Grandmasters quite yet over the weekend because of all the stuff that was going on. But let me tell you, the matches this weekend were actually really good to watch. There was a lot of really high-level play. It was, like, even with all the Shaman, people had plans against it, or they played really well against it, and there were a bunch of games that I really, really enjoyed watching. Now, as far as the meta, everybody brought Shaman, and everybody except Shaxi brought Priest. So they all had that. And Quest Druid was brought a lot, but only really did okay. There wasn't a ton of Warrior, and typically when you saw Quest Druid do well, it was because it beat the mirror or didn't get played. So the finalists in the Asia region both had Holy Wrath Paladins their third deck, and the fourth deck was Zoo for Tom and Highlander Hunter for Chiansu. In EU, it was Casey versus Hunter Ace, which was also quite a match. Casey had Control Warrior, Hunter Ace had Holy Wrath. They both had Quest Druid, the Control Warrior one. And in the USA, it was Purple versus Bloodyface. And there was Quest Druid Mirror. The fourth deck was Zoo versus Highlander Hunter. The Highlander Hunter took it. As far as games to watch, I've got 3 to 5 for you based on how much time you have. Purple versus Just Saying Game 3, if you can only watch one, this is the game. Highlander Hunter versus Quest Shaman. The game had so many swing turns. Really, really enjoyable to watch. There were rag shots. There were mind control tech snipes. There were Zul'jin swing turns. Really worth just going back and checking it out. I think the experience of watching the game is better than any description I could give you. Chiansu versus Tom 60229 Game 5. Tom 60229. whatever controversy we want to put on him, and there's some out there, whatever you want to put on him is justified, but he's a world champion, and you kind of saw it in this match, because his Holy Wrath Paladin had High Priest the Call, and this was in the mirror. And when Tom60229 had no cards in deck, instead of firing off the Holy Wrath, he played Shirvala, one of his 2 Baleful Bankers, then Thakal, then Trade, then Timeout. I'm at 35. I have a Shirvala on the board. You have no board. You can't damage me. Go. And he got himself up to around 40 life, and survived a Holy Wrath shot, took the board back, and then as soon as Chiansu went into fatigue, he had a True Silver charge up, Holy Wrath you, swing for 4, you take 1 in your turn, you're dead. Really sick play, really enjoyed seeing it. It was super cool. The casters were like, that was awesome. I was like, that was awesome. Really interesting. As far as the best match to watch, if you have the time, this whole match is great. Jarla versus Hunter Race in the semis. They're teammates. They know each other very well. Their lineups were a little bit different. They played a Holy Wrath Paladin mirror that was also really well played by Hunter Race. Surprise, surprise. But there were 2 games that I'm going to call out that isn't that game. Jarla's Holy Wrath against Hunter Race's Token Shaman. Jarla stabilized at 1 this game. And that's hard to do against Token Shaman. So definitely watch that game if you want to see what it's like to be a control player and to be in the back foot the entire game and still somehow win. And then if you want to watch a Shaman lose, and you want to watch a combo priest somehow being the good guy, which is very strange to say. Hunter Race's combo priest against Jarla's Quest Shaman, there were some turns that I have no idea how Hunter Race survived, but he was able to pull the game out through a really hard-fought back and forth. Really great match, and I enjoyed most of the weekend of matches. Definitely will check it out. As far as what's coming up, well, Bucharest deck lists are coming out in 4 hours from the time of this recording, which is 2 a.m. Eastern American time, so we're not staying up for that. But it's this weekend. It starts tomorrow, our time. And there will be Twitch drops. Definitely make sure you're watching if you want to get some classic packs. And the America's Grandmaster will almost certainly be selected from who does well in the Americas region in this tournament. The field is wide open. Tespa is ongoing as stated. The Swiss portion will wrap up shortly. And like we talked about, the American University players. And then Arlington Qualifiers are going on. And this is the first week of post... I might have just broken my chair. I don't know what that is. I'll come back to that later. So WickedGood has put together his OffCurve meta analysis dashboard, which we love as usual. The most popular lineup is Quest Druid Combo Priest Quest Shaman. Surprise to nobody. Number 2, Tempo Rogue Token Shaman Aggro Warrior, which surprised me a little bit. The only lineup that has won 2 qualifiers. And this is Language Hacker's lineup. Holy Wrath Paladin, Resurrect Priest, and Mechathune Warrior. And if you want to line up in best of 3 that is designed to beat Shaman, there it is. That's it right there. Now, there are some lineups that may be underappreciated. One thing I'm going to pick out. Highlander Hunter Murloc Paladin Token Shaman. I think is a little underrated right now. And it did pretty well with a small sample size. And a popular lineup that's a little overrated. Highlander Hunter Combo Priest Quest Shaman is actually not doing all that well. So just be aware of that if you're going to a qualifier anytime soon. There are a couple cool lineup winners that we have in the show notes, Language Hackers lineup. And then Flix played Shark Rogue, Highlander Hunter, Highlander Warrior to win a qualifier, which I think is super cool. We have that linked as well. As far as the ladder, well, this is going to be a lead in Decksplanations. But do you guys know what class is good right now?
Greetings, friend.
Yes. It's that one. Shaman is 30% of the ladder. 30%. 3 out of 10. Combo Priest is the only other Tier 1 deck besides Quest Shaman and Evolve Token Shaman. And if you are not playing one of those 3, you're probably making a mistake. Well, would you look at that segue? But before we get there, Masters Tour Bucharest is coming up soon. Blizzcon is in 2 weeks. Worlds will be there. We got the open dashboard in the Concede Discord. Pasca and Javier are posting stuff. They're posting links in there. If you want to play in some tournaments, get in there. Appa, take it away.
Did your chair break?
It's still holding me up, but there's a screw and a washer that are on the floor that weren't on the floor before, so we'll check
It's
that out
probably not
later.
good.
We'll investigate. Luckily, I don't think the chair's going to collapse under my weight because I'm very small.
All right, so Decksplanations this week. Combating the Rabbit Menace. Or, this meta is Bugs Bunny and we are all Elmer Fudd. AKA, we can't kill the rabbits. So, this Decksplanations actually started with the idea of, all right, let's do Decksplanations on how to beat Shaman. And then I started writing it, and then it kind of took me on an adventure, and we ended up here. So, the truth is that it's really, really hard to beat Shaman and climb on the ladder. And what I mean by that is play a deck specifically designed to beat Shaman and climb at the same time. So that's why it's the best deck in the game right now, because it's proactive, it's powerful, and it has really, really busted open hands. So what you can do is you can try to beat them with decks that are specifically teched against them, but then you run into a couple problems. You can run into other decks that your deck is not equipped to beat and lose versus those. You can also get matched up against a deck that you're teched against, so Quest or Evolve Shaman here, and then you could just not actually beat it consistently enough to justify running your deck on ladder. For example, you can queue up Combo Priest on ladder to beat Quest Shaman. You have probably around a 60% matchup versus Quest Shaman, so on average you'll win about 6 out of 10 games, but then you'll also lose 4 out of 10, and then you'll also lose the games where your opponent has Desert Heron to evolve on turn 4, because it's just extremely hard to beat that unless you also had a really strong draw. And you may specifically beat Quest Shaman somewhat frequently, but you can easily queue into Evolve Shaman, which is just as popular, for which you have about a 42% win rate. For every 6 games versus Quest Shaman that you win, you'll lose every 6 games versus Evolve Shaman. And you also have this problem of queuing into other decks, and you can either win or lose versus those things, depending on what you queue into. So it's really hard to target a specific Shaman deck right now, because both Evolve Token Shaman and Quest Shaman are extremely powerful and consistent, and they have different weaknesses, and their weaknesses are not that bad. And this reminds me a lot of pre-Rosticon's Rumble Druid before the Nourish, and was that Nourish and Wild Growth that got hit at the same time? I think it was. And it reminds me of those Druid decks, because that class had 3 tier 1 decks, all of which had different matchup spreads, and all of which had super gross net draws. So actually trying to target them was very, very difficult, because even if you managed to hit like a good meta read, like right now, say you hit a good meta read on, okay, we're going to queue into Quest Shaman all the time because that's what people are playing. Even if you're playing a deck that's designed to beat them, you're not going to beat them all the time. And then you're also going to queue into decks that just beat you. So you're not going to do the thing that you want to do consistently enough to justify just not playing Shaman. And the moral of the story here, just to make it really concise, is if you want to climb and climb consistently, just play Shaman. It's the best deck in Standard right now for a reason. And the reason is consistent and powerful. And even the decks that are designed to beat it don't beat it frequently enough to justify running them on ladder. At least if your intent is to climb and climb consistently. If your goal is just to like have fun or whatever, then sure, you can play other stuff. But if your goal when you sit down to play ladder is I want to climb as efficiently as possible, you should be playing Shaman. But if you're dead set against playing Shaman, we have some options. Secret Highlander Paladin is sort of a newish deck, because I mean Mysterious Challenger adds a lot of power to Highlander Paladin, and it's been putting up some decent results lately on ladder, and it has close to a 50-50 matchup versus both Evolved Token Shaman and Quest Shaman, and actually has a pretty good matchup spread everywhere else. And the matchup is close to 50-50, but you're still unfavored. You're like 47-48% versus both Shamans. So you're still going in at a disadvantage here, but you won't feel super bad about queuing into them. And then if you don't queue into Shaman, you have a pretty decent matchup in other places as well. So that would be my number one pick right now of a deck to play on ladder. Other decks. 1 second.
And I've played a bit of. Oh, Appa. What happened? Something bad's happened over there.
What?
Right.
It looks like he
Hold on.
went into Minecraft World and
Yes.
is getting
I'm gonna switch
acid
servers
rained
real quick.
on.
Okay, chat. This is gonna. Oh, we're back.
Did we do it?
We
I had
did
to
it.
kick little D out because she was eating her foot. It
Yeah.
sounded disgusting.
Also, your screen, you got a green line across your face and you stop moving. So.
Okay.
But also,
where were we?
I've been playing a bit of various flavors of Paladin, Secret Highlander, and regular Secret, and the build that I like the most right now, actually, is Mech Secret, which has been surprisingly good. Paladin has something there. There's definitely something there, but like Appa was saying, the difficulty isn't beating Evolve or Quest Shaman, it's beating both, and that's really difficult, and also beating the high rolls, and that's really difficult.
And then on top of that, those things are difficult in themselves, but then you also have to beat the other things
Yes.
that you'll face on ladder.
Yeah, you can't just like load up your deck with Warpass and Plagues of Wrath and Mind Control Text and all the things like this is good against Shaman specifically, and then someone plays a combo priest and you're like, oh, I'm dead right now.
Or you'll queue into Hat on ladder and he'll go Nazoth Talk Weckle Scheme, and then you'll be like, oh, I can't ever win. Rip.
I play other rogue decks too, and Tempo Rogue still very good and doing well in qualifiers. I've been that actually is pretty good against Quest Shaman, but not Evolve. But it is good against the other stuff.
Yeah, this is the problem that you're just going to run into right now in the meta is it's very hard to beat both at the same time. You can usually try and beat one, and then even then you'll get a high rolled a decent amount of the time. And you'll have this deck that's supposed to beat it, like Control Warrior against Even Shaman, or not Even Shaman, Evolved Token Shaman, where your deck's specifically set up to like beat wide boards, and then sometimes you'll be stuck with this clunky hand and your opponent will go Desert Hair Evolve and you can't deal with it and you'll lose. And that's just kind of the case for a lot of decks right now. But I agree. I think Paladin definitely has some stuff there. The Mech Secret Paladin deck, weren't you playing that a while ago? Whose deck was that? It was months ago that you were playing a version with I think there were only a couple secrets in there.
Yeah, there was I think a French player. Skywalker is playing it now. I don't know if they were also playing it back then. And it's like you've got it's magnetic secrets, and you have all these like silly high roll cards, and you play. I'm counting now. You play 4 secrets and 2 avenges, because avenge is stupid. It's real like avenge is a spell that you would play on purpose, and the other 4 you play for a mysterious challenge to go get. But also you get to play Christology, and you get to play. You have the Secret Keeper and the Secret Draw, and then you have the Glowtron, Micro Mummy, and like Snip Snap and Noyo Module War Gear Draw, and then you top out with Mysterious Challenger. So you get to kind of do a little bit of both, and the combination is pretty effective because most decks are good at half of your deck, not the other half. You just have to draw the right half.
Yeah. So aside from Paladin, the next deck that I would suggest playing is Combo Priest, which we've talked about a decent amount. It's the other tier 1 deck besides the Shaman decks, and you should be warned that it is good versus Quest Shaman. It's worse than it was before Evolve got introduced, because Quest Shaman just has these draws now where Desert Hair and Evolve you, and as a priest, you kind of have a tough time dealing with 3/4 drops on turn 3 or 4. But a decent chunk of the time they won't have that, and you can beat the Quest Shaman, but you'll also lose pretty hard to Evolve Token Shaman, because that deck was created last format specifically to beat Priest, and it got better. So your matchup there is kind of rough, but you can beat Quest Shaman, and then Combo Priest is also a deck where you have good matchups across the board, and it's one of those really powerful decks where if you get a really good like draw, it's going to be hard for most decks to beat you. So that would be one I would suggest. But it's kind of rough. like with most of the decks we're talking about here. You can beat one, you'll probably lose to the other, but you can kind of beat one of them sort of consistently. Then the other one you'll probably lose to. The next deck I actually have done here is actually another Paladin deck. I probably should have grouped those together, but here we are. The other deck I have down here is Holy Wrath Paladin, and it's a little bit difficult to play to maximize your percentages, but whenever you're playing like close to optimal, sorry, we'll do scratching on the door. She's like, "Let me in." But whenever you're playing close to optimal versus the Shaman decks, you can start to bring the matchup closer to 50-50, which doesn't sound super appealing for people who don't play the deck, because you have to work really hard for your wins. But if you play really well and your opponent doesn't draw super well, then the matchup can be pretty close versus both of the Shaman decks. But the problem with this one is it has polarized matchups all over the place. So you could be playing against the Shamans and get close to 50-50, but then you'll also run into like the Control Warrior who's trying to beat the Evolved Shaman. You'll be like, oh, did you get above 50? Dang.
The Vicious Syndicate report for this week has 7 matchups filled in for Holy Wrath Paladin from 4 to Legend. That's what we have the data for. It has a slightly favored matchup against Aggro Shaman, a slightly better than favored matchup against Quest Shaman, and every other matchup is either neutral or red. So that is, they have data on Aggro Warrior, you lose. Highlander Hunter, you lose. Secret Hunter, you lose. Quest Druid, you lose bad. And Combo Priest, kind of even. And so if you want to beat just Shaman, and you want to practice Holy Wrath a lot, you can do that. And Holy Wrath is not a bad deck to practice. It's being brought in a lot of tournament lineups, and it really rewards getting reps in with the deck and dealing with situations in new ways each time. Some of the best players I've seen with it use the timeouts really proactively in some matchups, because you don't need to wait till the end to use timeout. You can use it proactively so you can get to your board clears with having a life buffer. And it's been really interesting to watch people who are better than me at the deck navigate that. But you have to put the reps in, and you have to kind of accept losses versus quite a few decks out there, because some of those matchups are just terrible. And we talked about the Kun the Forgotten King interaction. You're not going to do enough damage to beat the extra 30 armor they're going to gain, plus the hidden Oasis.
Yeah, I think the lineup that Zabe came to, and I'm not sure what Mick's playing, but Zabe is bringing Holy Wrath Paladin. He's bringing an interesting lineup where he can ban Shaman if he needs to, but he's okay against it. And then if he ever runs into like Quest Druid, he's just like, all right, ban that one. Because he's a very good Holy Wrath Paladin player. So he can find those percentages there to make the matchups close. But yeah, against Quest Druid, it's not good. It's not a good one. And then next up, which we talked about in passing, is Control Warrior. And this one beats Evolved Token Shaman pretty handily, but struggles pretty hard against Quest. And the reason for that is it's really good about getting rid of wide boards, but Quest Shaman, once it has its Quest hero power going, can really start grinding the warrior out. And problem with this one is it loses pretty hard to some of the more popular decks as well. It's one of those decks that has really polarized matchups, and yeah, so you can beat Evolve Shaman frequently. Quest Shaman is rough, and then everything else is just a crapshoot basically on ladder. And then a deck that besides Secret Highlander Paladin that I would probably play if I didn't enjoy playing Shaman and I wanted to try and climb on ladder would actually be Secret Highlander Hunter, because it actually has pretty close matchups versus both of the Shaman builds, and outside of that, it has a pretty decent matchup spread across the board where it doesn't have a ton of unfavorables, and it has a decent amount of favorables, but keep in mind that the favorables for this are generally like 55% or so. So it's not like you're going to get crazy positive matchups, but you're also not going to get like crazy terrible matchups for yourself either. So it feels like a pretty safe bring to ladder if you're not going to play Shaman or any of the other decks we talked about. And then the last deck that I wanted to touch on is actually Quest Hunter, because I'm going off HS Replay stats. It's a bit of a small sample size. There's a few thousand games versus Quest Shaman, I think, and I think like 700 or 800 games versus Evolved Token Shaman last I checked, and you're pretty positive actually versus both of those. But the problem here is you got some really abysmal matchups in a lot of other places. So like you can beat the Shamans 30% of the time you queue into them, unless you're at rank 1, and it's 50% of the time. But then you get crushed by a lot of other stuff. So if you're really tilt spiraling down to the rank floor and you're really looking to beat these Shamans, you queue up that Quest Hunter. You get them.
Hey, I told you told you all about Quest Hunter. You didn't believe me.
I think that Nikolai's deck is still probably good. The Highlander Quest Hunter, you can put Call of the Wild in that there. That's 3 ticks in the quest. 3 ticks? Zul'jin brings him right back.
And he plays Zul'jin in the Quest Hunter deck too? I told you!
I think he does. I don't remember. I remember killing people on turn 9, so
You can. That's the thing, is you can, because it replays the quest.
Oh, yeah, so he probably doesn't play Zul'jin. And it also overwrites your hero power, which you wanted that hero power.
Well, it depends, because if you just play it as a late game thing, then it's going to play the quest and probably get you 7 ticks on it anyway.
Yeah.
Depending on how it works.
But he probably doesn't play it. I don't want to slander the good name of Nikolaius. I don't want to do that.
I don't think you need to play it, but I don't think it's a completely unreasonable card to include, because as we've said multiple times about Zul'jin, is that it's kind of, you may not win right when you play it, but you kind of win right when you play it in a couple turns, just because the value it generates is so big. So even if like it overwrites your hero power, usually that's not going to matter, because all the things that you played in order to get the new hero power are going to kind of balance itself out, I would think.
Unless you swarm of locusts first, and then you're very sad.
Yes. that is potentially true. But,
so I will say that I didn't believe in Quest Hunter at first during spoiler season, and Bodicus did. A+ to him, +1 to Bodicus.
I was almost I don't think it's a B+. I think I gave it a plus. We're not up there, but it is a playable card.
I want to give Bodicus +2 attack. I don't want to give him +1. +2 attack.
There you go. Lance Carrier on Bodicus.
It's the hero power for the Hunter quest. You get the.
Oh, yeah, that one as well.
That was the joke.
But I will say that I did quickly see the error of my ways whenever I played against it a couple times, because it is powerful.
Yeah, press this button, Savage Roar.
Some surprising things, yeah. I wanted to do a quick, because we didn't really, like, we explained what decks are good.
Wait, hold on a second.
I wanted to
hold on, Bodicus. I don't mean to cut you off. The Hunter quest is Hunter Bluff Valiant. I'm gonna mute now, Bodicus. You can talk.
Are we done? Can I make my point? All right. So, real quick, kind of, I don't know if it's obvious or not, but just kind of the reason why the 2 Shaman decks are so different in terms of win rate versus different versions of these decks is just because kind of the way to beat them is very different. If you look at the Evolved Shaman deck, it has a really solid early game, and the way to beat it is kind of, you can run it out of resources, which is why Control Warrior is pretty favorable against it, and its late game is not nearly as strong as the Quest Shaman. Whereas the decks that beat the Quest Shaman are generally the ones that have the really solid early game, like Combo Priest. So if you're looking to have the mindset when you're going into the game, when you queue up against a Shaman, it's going to be really hard to tell which one they are unless they obviously mulligan the far left card. But against the Evolved Shaman, which is kind of similar to what you would consider an aggro overload Shaman, it's a little different, but the goal against that deck, I would think, and Appa can correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of survive the early game, try to remove their threats as much as possible, because their refill is not nearly as good. Whereas if you're going up against Evolved or Quest Shaman and you can get an early start, it can be pretty hard for them to catch up, and going face against the Quest Shaman early is usually pretty good, because their really only catch-up mechanism for getting life back is Life Drinker, and that doesn't come online until the later stages of the game. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're queuing into them, when you're looking at these decks, and you might be thinking, okay, well, it says this is a good matchup, but why is this a good matchup against the deck? That's kind of what you can think about. And I'd be interested to hear if Appa has anything to add to that on kind of little tips and tricks or things to think about when you're going into the matchups.
Yeah, so part of the big weakness that can be exploited versus Quest Shaman is 1 to 3 decently sized minions that hit your opponent in the head, which is why Combo Priest is really good at that. Even if you don't Divine Spirit Inner Fire kill them in one turn, if you like play an injured Tolbir and your opponent probably can't kill anything because they played Quest on 1 and then like 2 draw on turn 2, and then you healed your Tolbir, if you like just Inner Fire that to make it a 6/6, that is kind of a nightmare for the Quest Shaman because they do not have a good way to remove that. And so that's a weakness of Quest Shaman and something you can attack. But Evolved Token Shaman preys on that kind of deck because they get on the board really early and they play this card called Lickum. And I don't know if you've played against 2-mana Fiery War Axe +1 durability. That card is nice at controlling the board early. And Token Shaman doesn't have a super great late game. You're really looking to get, obviously, the Desert Hare and Evolve turn, but you're also looking to control the board early with Lickum, Voltaic Burst, Zap, all this kind of stuff. You're playing some dorky minions early, but you usually don't play a ton of stuff early until you play into a big swing turn, which is usually an Evolve turn or a Thunderhead Overload turn. And then you snag the board back from your opponent. And those kind of turns are very good against minion-based decks because you want to actually use those spark tokens from the Thunderhead to kill up your opponent's stuff. And then whenever you're playing against decks like Resurrect Priest or Control Warrior, stuff that doesn't have a ton of early minions, your hands can get pretty awkward unless you have the really proactive Evolve draws, which is why Token Shaman can struggle versus the decks that pack a ton of board removal, whereas Quest Shaman thrives against those decks because you can use your board removal and your 1-for-1 removal, but whenever my quest is completed, I'm going to 2-for-1 you every single turn for the rest of the game with like pretty much every card that I play. So this is why it's so hard to attack both, because they can both be extremely proactive with the desert, like the really busted Desert Hare or Mogu Evolve draws, but they also have very different strengths and weaknesses. So they're both like really powerful and really proactive, but they also do wildly different things as the game goes on.
Yeah.
Also,
Evolve Shaman, it's a Bloodlust deck. And in the Shaman Mirror, I keep Sea Giant in the opener, and you just kind of play a big thing quickly and hope it's enough and hit your opponent in the face. It's very zoo-ish, whereas Quest Shaman very much a late game value deck. Very, very much about just generating cards.
If you can do anything to constrain the Quest Shaman's board in the late game, a lot of times they'll go really wide with a bunch of low power creatures. They'll try to get like one big creature, but sometimes you can get into board states where they're kind of forced to go wide with a bunch of small creatures. And if you have enough life total to work with, you can actually stall a bunch of turns, which can be useful. That's something to watch out. Or if somehow you can get a 0 mana taunt minion in play and they have a full board, it's really good at being able to stall them, because Quest Shaman needs to have board spaces to be able to do stuff. So even if you constrain it so they can only play one minion, a lot of times that's going to prevent how fast they're able to take the game, because like I said, you need board space to be able to do stuff in Quest Shaman. So something else to watch out for.
You looked like you were going to say something, Hat.
You look like you were going to say something, Appa.
Oh, I was just waiting.
That's the hardest part. All right.
I was just waiting for you to like hit the Jeopardy music bumper.
No, okay. So I want to wrap up this Decksplanations. We talked about this in the bonus episode. We all agree that they're going to nerf something if this play rate stays the same, and I think it will. How would you fix Standard? Because I don't know if it's not necessarily the worst we've ever seen, but I don't feel compelled to play a lot right now, and I don't think the format could be defined as healthy, even though there's a lot of options for decks, because people are not playing Shaman because they're bored of it, not because it's not good. And towards the end of the month, that may very well change in terms of what representation of Shaman we see in a more significant way.
Biggest change, Mogu Flesh Shaper. That needs to get changed first and foremost. It's far and away the most powerful card. It leads to the most blowouts. It needs to probably cost more or not have Rush. And maybe even both. I think Rush is probably the biggest offender of that card. But I would also think that if you do not do something to evolve or something else, that I think that just changing Mogu Flesh Shaper to probably, I would say, cost 9 would be my guess. If you don't want, since usually they're in for changing mana costs, I would say make it cost 9, and then I don't know what you do with evolve. Maybe you just say at the end of the event, evolve goes away for something else, and because there's an event that's going to end on, I think, October 30th, and they said the cards are going to stay in for 2 months, or at least till the new expansion comes out. But I think evolve should also change. I would recommend to them that they change evolve to a different card.
Yeah, so if I were to fix Standard, I would do a couple things. All right, Alec, Cora, if you're listening, pay attention. So I would make Mogu cost 9 or 10. 10 would probably kill the card. 9, I think, would be the break point where it would still see a little bit of fringe play, sort of like Corridor Creeper did after the nerf. It still saw some play in like Odd Paladin, some other board-focused decks. I think you really need to change the mana cost on that, because if it stays as it is right now, even after Evolve leaves, we still have it in Standard for months, like over a year, and it's in the same set with Mutate, so it's not going anywhere. And those two cards are going to be in every single board-centric Shaman deck, which are generally most of the Shaman decks, because Control Shaman hardly ever gets there. And I really love Shaman, and I love playing these kind of decks, and I've enjoyed Mogu Mutate for a little bit, but I don't think I'm going to like being like 8 months down the road and just going into my collection, opening up the deck builder, and putting Mutates and Mogus in my decks and thinking, okay, what other 26 cards am I playing now? I think that's a problem for deck building, and I think Mogu should probably be attacked, because that card is really, really strong. it's weird because it's like in your face powerful and also subtly too strong at the same time. Because the stats on it don't look oppressive. It's just a 3/4 with rush, like we've had those before. But it's also free a lot of the time. And just mana discounts in general have led to problems in the past. And I think Mogu is I think the design on it was like really, really close to being like very good, but it's just a little bit too pushed. And then I would also replace Evolve, and I think I would honestly replace it with Totem Golem. And yeah, hat jerked back in his chair. All right, yes, Totem Golem is a fair card. That card is completely reasonable on its own. Bear with me. So that card was in standard for a good while, and before League of Explorers or anything came out, and it was like it's solid. It's a spider tank that you get to play earlier, but it's also kind of a dorky thing. And whenever you're not going 1-drop Tunnel Trog into Totem Column, it's much more manageable to deal with just a 2-drop on turn 2 as opposed to scaling 1-drop into 2-drop. And it's also not getting spit out of a 3-mana 3/2 body for free. And it would also fit within the recent theme of Overload cards with Lickum, Vicina, Thunderhead, and would go in the decks with like Zap and Lightning Bolt and Sludge Slurper and stuff.
So you want
It would.
you want turn 2 Totem Golem into turn 3 Lickum? That's what you want?
I mean, sure.
That'd be,
guess.
That'd be pretty good, man.
Yeah, it would be pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the Lickum pushes it over the top, but
That'd be a little spirit clausy. Like it'd be pretty strong. Totem Golem without Trog is way less of a problem than it was. But like there are a lot of cards that really like overload mechanics right now.
Yeah, so even then though, if you're playing Totem Golem and Lickum on 2 and 3, you're not really doing anything on 1, and then you're spending 2 to play the Golem, which isn't much of a drawback, and then Lickum on 3. So you can definitely pick apart board-centric decks there, but I don't know.
Coin Lickum into Totem Golem.
Yeah.
That's also pretty good.
Kind of didn't think about that curve. That seems really good. All right, scratch Totem Golem. Thunderbluff Valiant. We're bringing him back.
All right. I was
while we're at it, just bring back the 3 to 6 damage card.
No crackles. We're not doing crackles. We talked about this a bit in the bonus episode, and I've actually thought about this and I changed my opinion. At first I said don't do Thunderbluff Valiant and Think from Below at the same time because then you're just saying make Totem Shaman. But then on the other hand, Mysterious Challenger and Avenge both came back at the same time. And that kind of says build Secret Paladin. And then we did, and it was good, but not too good. So, okay, I'll build Totem Shaman. I'll put in my Hench Clan hags and summon 2 totems. I'll do that.
Oh, and the new 3/2 axe that makes copies of all your totems.
Splitting axe, yeah.
Splitting axes, yeah.
I've played the like full-on totem version of the deck whenever Thing from Below came back, and it's pretty good. It doesn't feel oppressive or anything. It has really strong like swing turns in the mid game, has really powerful starts, and it's a pretty fair deck. And I actually would like to see Thunderbluff Valiant come back. The card's so fair, and I think it feels better than it actually is, just because it existed in the same deck with Tunnel Trog, Totem Golem, Barnes, all that nonsense. But yeah, I think that one would be interesting to bring back. But I really think Evolve should probably go, or else we're going to have a couple months of standard that are just nonsense.
Yeah, like what Evolve feels like right now reminds me a little bit of what Vargoth felt like when they introduced it a week early. It's not. This format was way healthier than the end of Year of the Raven was. And I don't want to send the message that this format was in a bad state before. In fact, I think the main problem is that Saviors of Uldum was so good in Standard that anything was going to be worse. And this isn't quite as bad as when we went from Ungoro into J Druid land. This is not that level because this deck is nowhere near 5 mana Spreading Plague Jade Druid. Not even in the same ballpark. Not even in the same sport. But we went from a good meta to a fairly unbalanced meta in one particular direction very quickly. And it's kind of hard to stay excited about it unless you have the nostalgia for the old cards, which I do. And I enjoy playing them. I'm just playing less Hearthstone. And it's not necessarily because of Standard, but it's not because of Standard. I'm just changing how I devote my time, and I think that's worth looking at because we've heard this from a bunch of people that something's up with the Standard meta, and I don't quite know what it is, but I'm really not digging it. And we've heard it from ourselves. We're playing a little bit less. We're playing different stuff, more Arena, more Tombs of Terror, and that's fine. I'm grateful that Hearthstone has other things to do. But I think we need to make some kind of change in the card composition. I do think rotating Evolve early makes a ton of sense to me. Mogu Flesh Shaper's mana cost up makes a ton of sense to me. And there's been some thoughts about increasing the mana cost might make that card better, but I think limiting the pool of what you can get out of it is probably a good thing. I wouldn't want to see the 10 mana 10/10 taunt get evolved into, and I wouldn't really want to see Colossus of the Moon. But otherwise, I think the 10 drops are generally just like piles of stats, and you're not going to face down some kind of ridiculous battle cry or rush minion that you otherwise would if it cost 7. Like, you're not going to face down Batterhead or Walking Fountain, for example.
Yeah, but the thing there is, like, even if you up the mana cost to make the potential evolve pool better, that happens way later in the game.
Yeah.
Like, significantly later. Like, turn 7 or 8 or something. Like, you need 5 minions on board, your opponent needs 5 minions to play this for free.
Yeah.
But I think the obvious, or the most important thing they should touch is Mogu, because I think that card's going to be a problem for its tenure in Standard, basically. And I think they probably should replace Evolve with something else on top of that, just because even if you remove Mogu, you still have the Desert Hare Evolve problem, where that just leads to non-games, and that's not fun for the person playing against it, and sometimes not fun for the person playing with it, in my case. But I'm not sure what the right card to replace it with would be. I think Thunderbolt Valiant makes a lot of sense because it's like fairly iconic for people who have played for a long time, as just like I feel like it's just one of like the quintessential Shaman cards that I think of when I think of the class. But yeah, there's a lot of options there. But I think Mogu definitely needs to be changed for sure.
Okay. Follow-up question. Should they have done this wild card thing? Should they have introduced these 23 cards? Like, should they have introduced any cards at all mid-expansion to the format instead of just doing a regular balance patch? Are you glad they did this, and should they have done it?
I'm glad they did it. I mean, you're going to miss all the shots you don't take. And sometimes you're going to shoot too high, and that's kind of part of growing pains in doing new things. So the way I think about this is we could keep the meta the same, and then in a month or two, we'd all be very bored of it because it'd be stale. Or they could try and shake something up before the next Master Tour to challenge people's deck building and make like viewing it more interesting. And that's what they try to do, and they shot a little bit too high on one of the cards. And I think that's okay if they missed on one of the cards, because I don't think anything else has broken the format, really. I think the closest thing to making something really powerful is actually Mysterious Challenger and Avenge in the Secret Paladin builds. But we also don't really know what the meta would look like if we didn't have Evolve in the Evolve Shaman builds. But Evolve really is the outlier here. And how many cards did they bring back? 2 for each class. So that's 18 plus,
23.
was it
23 cards.
23 cards? So missing on 1 out of 23 is, that's pretty decent. Especially if they like kind of try and fix it right away.
Yeah. Is N'Zoth a mistake? Not,
I don't think so.
I
Not
don't think
power
so.
level.
It's hard to tell yet.
Not power level, play pattern. It's the Kartut Defender situation is kind of soul crushing to play against. I don't think it's too good. But like, do you want that in the game as a natural end game for a lot of classes?
I mean, does it feel any different soul crushing wise than playing against Warrior? Old Control Warrior?
Than playing against Dr. Boom?
I would
Yeah.
rather play against N'Zoth than Dr. Boom
Yeah.
every time. Literally every single time.
100% of the time.
Not even remotely close.
Yes, but we were also begging for that card to get banned for months. Like, that's not the comparison that I want. I don't know if there's a control deck that feels good to play against because you want to, like, it takes a while and then you lose, and that's not fun. I don't know what the answer is to this question. But I wouldn't be surprised if a bunch of people are feeling bummed out because N'Zoth can feel like Gul'dan back my Voidlord-ish sometimes. And that also got a bunch of people to stop playing. Gul'dan did other things, like kill you from 25. And that was better than what we have now.
But the N'Zoth decks like have to be good against something, right? So like them bringing back Kartut Defenders is like very good against aggro, but like if you're a super grindy deck, it's like, okay, you got 3/4s, whatever. We'll battle through this board, unless you're playing Rogue, in which case you shuffle 17 of them into your deck because you're a degenerate.
Usually, I find the 5th N'Zoth is where I get them. It's usually number 4 and number 5. And the 5th one's pretty good, but also
yeah,
the Rogue deck and the Priest deck have started playing Hakar to win the control mirrors, and that's where it starts to feel a little spooky to me.
Yeah, that sounds like some nonsense, but I think if the meta was coming down to N'Zoth being a really big powerhouse, which it's sort of close to right now, but not quite there because Shaman's oppressive. I mean, we have options to beat that. We have Malagos Druid, we have Holy Wrath Paladin. I was blanking on the name. We could even potentially have other different decks, like potentially Malagos Shaman, if this Evolved Shaman deck wasn't the play it or what are you doing of the format. And then you also have stuff like Combo Priest. Like, yeah, N'Zoth decks are going to prey on stuff, but it's a mana win condition. That's what it's supposed to do. I think the interaction with N'Zoth and Kartut Defender is kind of silly, but I mean, that's just kind of where we are right now. And I don't know. I don't think N'Zoth's a problem, but then again,
also like the play pattern with N'Zoth is like they get back a huge board. You kind of know that you're going to die with that. Whereas with Dr. Boom, at least you were like, well, if they roll the same hero power this many times and they don't have this much stuff, then I need to keep playing this game. Whereas if a rogue plays N'Zoth and then Shadow Steps it and then plays it again and shuffles a bunch into the deck, you could just complete that game. Like you know what's going to happen for the rest of the game, and that's an obvious, clear time to concede. Whereas against Warrior, you just couldn't concede because there's this little tiny chance where you probably should concede, but you don't because you feel like you still have a chance in the game. Where I'm much more of a fan of knowing I'm dead and I can just move on to the next game. It may not feel great, but it feels infinitely better than playing against like Dr. Boom.
And I think here's my bottom line with N'Zoth as a win condition feeling too powerful is it's a 10 mana really grindy win condition that to break it, you also need to play usually a 6 mana card to set that up with another card in your hand also. In the case of Seance and N'Zoth, you need to have the Seance and the N'Zoth and the Emperor in your hand, and have the Cartute Defenders and what other death rattles in the pool, and also not die while you're doing that. So the Cartute Defenders help, but you also need all this stuff to come together, which is like good in grindy matchups, but you can also just die to a combo deck or die to like aggro warrior or something, or get Divine Spirit interfired. I think if Evolve, Token Shaman, and Quest Shaman were touched and balanced, I don't think N'Zoth would be a problem because you'd have way more decks as viable options on ladder than right now.
Yeah, and I didn't really get to answer the question yet. I 100% feel like this was a good addition to try these wild cards. If they had not added them, I don't know that I would have played much next month because I think I would have been pretty bored. I'm 100% okay with them shooting on some cards and missing a little bit. I honestly don't think they missed on Evolve by that much because it does feel like they missed on it, but it doesn't feel as egregious as like Luna's Pocket Galaxy. And yes, this is the second time that they've tried something like this and they've missed on a card or two, but it's their second time ever doing anything like this, really. Like,
So I'm actually thinking right now, and I think another solution, instead of just rotating Evolve completely, since I think we're all in agreement that Mogo should probably be touched. Aside from that, another fix to this would just be make Desert Hare summon 2 1/1s, like for 1, as opposed to 2 3-mana 1/1s. You just make it summon 1-drops, and it's still fine. Like, you still have a decent Evolve turn, but it's not nearly as busted. Which it's kind of weird for the quote spirit of the card, but like, why does it summon 2 other hares? I don't know. But I think you could also solve it in that way, as like tackling the mana cost of the tokens that it summons.
Remember that this is a fixed Serenite chain gang. This is the fixed version. Copying minions is dangerous. But I think I agree with the general idea. Trying things is good. And I don't know. So WickedGood asked in chat, is it better to not play because you're bored or not play because you're losing to nonsense? And the answer is, depends who you ask. And those are some good puns in chat. Yeah, Craptasm asking, Craptasm saying, I think you're splitting hairs, spelled like Tortoise Andy. I'm very impressed. A lot of people complained about boredom more than they complained about randomness. Well, I guess I'd answer that question. Which was worse? The end of the Year of the Mammoth with Kobolds, or the end of Year of the Raven with Rastakhan's Rumble? And the answer from the data says it's Rastakhan's Rumble, because instead of people being upset about Recruit and Corridor Creeper, which were reasonable things to do, and completely quitting, what really got people to stop playing Hearthstone was 2 expansion that didn't do anything, and the same upgraded hero power winning the game from the start of the turn for a year. Start of the game for a year. It's not a perfect example because it was dominant for an entire year, but we kind of have a pretty clear indicator that boredom is worse for the game than randomness, because Gen and Baku did more damage to the game than Yogg-Saron ever could. And I think that's kind of telling.
Yeah, and that's why I think I'm the most okay with them trying stuff like this. Because, I mean, if we waited another month or so of just playing the same decks, or even probably like another few weeks, we'd probably start getting bored. And if they spend, or if they take risks like this and try and inject some new stuff into the format before we start getting bored, keeping us interested, I'm okay with that. And if they overshoot here and there, like they're going to, like I said earlier, it's growing pains with trying new stuff like this. But if they try and just get in front of us getting collectively bored, I think that's okay. I think that's a fine strategy for them to take.
I think you just want engagement to be high, even if there's spikes in engagement after something comes out and then it realizes that it's. I think you would rather have the spike in engagement instead of just kind of a flat line down. So even if like the valleys are lower, you'd rather have that spike of engagement halfway in between sets. So I th- I'm okay with what they're doing now. If they continue to mess up and it's like a year or a year and a half, and they just mess up every single time, I think that's more of a point where we can start looking at saying, well, why are they messing up, or is maybe this isn't as good of an idea. But I don't think you can say after two times of them making what I think are ultimately small mistakes. um, I don't think that you can for sure at this point say, oh, they just need to stop doing this. They need to go back to just balance patches.
Well, and we're going to end this section and start to close out the show, but we have a very particular perspective here as hosts. We are on the casual competitive to grinder mindset, and we don't really know outside of that how people feel, other than what we hear in our Discord. And we'd love to hear from you. If you have a perspective or opinion on bringing back these cards, we want to know how you feel about it, either positively or negatively. Feel free to write in, because I remember when these cards were announced, a bunch of people that hadn't played in a while were like, hey, I know these cards. I'm going to come back and try them out. And even if that gets people back in the client just for a little bit, and then they see there's this cool solo content, and they get the first, they try out the first wing, and they get back in the game, or even if they just try it, and they don't know what they're doing, they play a couple games and they leave. At least they're paying attention, and they try, and they see what's going on. And that kind of experimentation and wider appeal to people that might not be us, that this patch might not have been about just competitive integrity and quality of the meta, that might have some value in keeping Hearthstone sustainable, even if it's not fully targeted our demographic. So I'm very curious. And if anyone has an opinion, please write in and let us know what you think, or tag us on Twitter, or come to our Discord and let us know. We would love to hear from you. And I think that's going to do it. So why don't we get into the thanks? Because we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at coinconcede.com, where you can also find our content info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coinconcede. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coinconcede. If you'd like some CC swag, head over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. And big thanks to our producers. And welcome back, Viriatus, Number Theory, Itinerant Wizard, Donald Pugugly, and Doge TK. And we've got Coin Concedes. I'm going to take the first one. Smiley Chris, longtime friend of the show, longtime supporter of the show. And to put it in her words, she made a mini Chris and had a child on Friday. And Chris, congratulations. Welcome to parenthood. And hope everything goes well for you and the family. So great to hear. All right. Bias, you got one written down here.
Yes, congrats to Smiley Chris. I would also like to do a little concede to WickedGood, who gave us a little bit extra stuff to discuss at the end of that Decksplanations. I appreciate chiming in with some opinions. It's always good to hear from him, because he has a great show over on OffCurve, and it sounds like he's going to have an episode about this same topic where he refutes our I assume refutes our opinions on this matter. So I look forward to listening to that, and you should all listen to that episode too.
What about you, Appa?
I don't know. I can't think of one. I've been staring at this blank coin concede section by my name for like the past 3 minutes. I can't think of anything. I need help. Save me.
Coin Concede to Craptasm for making you smack your head during the show.
Yes, Coin Concede to Craptasm for hitting me with some of these nonsense bunny puns, aka I think you're splitting hairs here. That was a good one.
Yeah, he just kind of hopped into the stream and it.
Oh my.
All right, so keep calm and.
Wasn't supposed to do that, but I did.
And if you see us on ladder, Coin Concede.
Coin Concede.
Concede.
I go home now.
Boss will not like this.
You really suck me shit.
You fiends have bested me.
No wins today. Back to the lamp. Our plans did not work.
I have no more time for this.
It's time to give up.